Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen spoke exclusively with Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan about the increasing labor shortages. She said many of the issues are because of the ongoing COVID-19 health crisis. Here's a bit of that interview.
Labor force participation is quite depressed relative to pre-pandemic levels. I think part of it reflects concerns about COVID and exposure to COVID, especially in jobs that involve public-facing activities. And partly, the fact that childcare workers, educators are in short supply creates childcare problems that also tends to suppress labor supply. So as I say, when we really get control of the pandemic, I think labor supply will go back to normal.
CBS News Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent and Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan joins me now for more. Margaret, a record number of Americans quit their jobs last month, and there are about 10.4 million jobs open. That's more than the 6 million who lost their jobs because of COVID, as you're aware, and haven't come back. So what is going on, and what's the Biden administration's plan to get more people back into the workforce?
Well, it was interesting to hear the Treasury Secretary come back time and again to the pandemic as the problem. She, as you heard in that exchange, really focused in on what are the things that are particularly holding back women from re-entering the workforce, because we know that it's women with flexible work schedules, with college degrees. Large numbers of them have dropped out. And time and again, she says that comes back to childcare. Whether that is it is an open question, because you also look at the internals. So some of these numbers that we've seen, and you see large number of retirees, you see people who are quitting, and the quitting may be because people feel confident they can go out and get a better job or a better paying job elsewhere. Yet there are these cross currents. We also heard from her that immigration is something that might need to be looked at in terms of helping the country meet the demand for skilled workers. So this is really a space to watch, because it looks like something's really changing in terms of American society and the jobs that are available versus the jobs that people are seeking or that they are capable of doing. The administration is trying to use all of this, of course, as you know, as leverage to get their big package through politically. And right now we don't have any clear timeline for the president's spending legislation, the things that involve child care tax credits and the like, to actually get signed into law.
That's so interesting, Margaret, and what I really appreciate about the question and answer that you had with Secretary Yellen, we've heard a lot about them talking about the barriers for women to re-enter the workforce in terms of child care, but did we hear more about how the Biden administration intends to get more people to provide child care? Because we know that that's certainly also one of the considerations, not just all of us working women being able to afford child care, but actually having enough child care providers.
Exactly, and that's what she zeroed in on, the lack of educators and the lack of child care providers. So if a child care provider is quitting their job because they get a better paying one elsewhere, then that takes them out of the workforce. So what's going on with that industry? Well, when you look at the risk, she says again and again, of COVID. Frontline workers, people who are dealing with those who still cannot be vaccinated, the very young, that's a risk associated with one of those jobs, for example. So she is pointing back to the pandemic as key to unlocking everything, essentially. So it is going to be really interesting to watch the child care industry and whether they see any kind of wage increase as potentially helping them out. But right now, it is the fear of infection, she says, that's perhaps depressing things.
So very interesting. And I know that there's parents all across this country that are really appreciative that you were pushing on that. I want to also ask you about inflation, Margaret, because this week the Bureau of Labor Statistics said that inflation jumped 6.2% in October. That's the biggest monthly increase in 3 decades. In what ways does this complicate President Biden's economic agenda?
It complicates everything because it's something we feel right now in a real world sense. You know at your kitchen table that virtually everything there, the eggs, the milk, the coffee, the cost went up. You know to buy a new car that it went up. 26%, 50% for gas year over year. So those are things you're experiencing now. So while the fundamentals in the economy that the Treasury Secretary is pointing to that are positive, where she's saying people feel confident that they have money, people feel they can go get better paying jobs, there are available jobs. Those things are hopeful, but at the same time, the cost of living going up is eating into that wage growth, and it's eating into our psychology as well. So there is an economic cost to it, and there is a political cost to it as well for President Biden, which is why I did press the Treasury Secretary on the "so when does it get better" question, because where it falls on the calendar will have a lot of implications. She has said in the past that she believes it is the second half of 2022 before it gets any better. This is also going to hurt their chances of making the argument for some of these spending bills, because people want help now, not months or years from now.
So given that, and given that Democrats are hoping to hold a vote sometime next week on the president's social spending and climate bill, what's the latest that you can tell us in terms of negotiations and where things currently stand?
Well, the Treasury Secretary acknowledged in our interview that it doesn't look like paid family leave is going to make it into law as part of this package. So what she is acknowledging there is that what is voted on in the House next week will end up being rewritten in the Senate and a number of items stripped out of it. So the administration knows that's coming. So we're going to be talking about this, reworking of this package for the foreseeable future. There is no hard timeline. Senator Joe Manchin has said as well, and you know how important he is to actually getting this across the finish line. He said, what are we in a rush for? Let's look at the concerns surrounding inflation and whether pumping more money into the economy will actually make it worse. So there's no real timeline here on that. And so the administration wants to get it done, argues it has to get done. The thing they will be able to say on Monday is that the bipartisan infrastructure bill will become law. And so money will be put to use there to create these shovel-ready jobs and to actually bring in more projects. But the challenge there is a lot of those projects don't actually get acted on until 2023 and 2024. So 1.2 trillion in spending stretched out over time, but when do the American people see the benefit? And that's going to be a big political question for President Biden.
Absolutely. We know that the administration's very excited about that bill signing on Monday, but when that shovel actually hits the ground in terms of being shovel ready is still months away at the soonest. Margaret, tell us what else you have on deck for the rest of your show.
We've got a great program. We have the governor of Colorado, Jared Polis. Colorado is seeing a real spike in COVID cases, and he made the decision to issue an order that would allow everyone in his state to go get a booster shot now, whether or not they technically qualify under the CDC regulations. We're going to talk to him about that. We will also speak to the economy writ large with Neil Kashkari, the president of the Minneapolis Federal Reserve Bank, to ask him about inflation and what his projections are. David Malpass, the president of the World Bank, will also be joining us to talk about climate change and wealthier countries paying the bill for developing countries who need the help to combat climate change right now. The world's biggest polluters are being asked to pay for some of the world's poorest countries to deal with the impact.
A very economic heavy show, and it matches what people all across the country are feeling. Margaret, look forward to tuning in. Thank you.